So, hi Jessica, it's great to have you. Today we have you on to talk a little bit about what it's like pre-diagnosis when you have a child who you suspect has something like sensory processing disorder or autism. So, can you tell us a little bit about you?
I am a 23-year-old single mom. My oldest son is Mason. He just turned 4. And we, I just recently started to suspect that he might be on the autism spectrum or have a sensory processing disorder.
Okay, so what are some of the initial concerns that first made you think that he might have something going on?
Well, it started with when I really started noticing that there might be something going on with him. Uh, we were doing his birthday party, and there was a bunch of kids here, so it was loud. But he knew what the day was. He knew that it was a happy, fun day. We were going to be playing games, and there was a bunch of kids here to play with him. But he was covering his ears. He had his hands over his ears a few times, and he wasn't upset. He wasn't covering his ears because he was upset. He was smiling and laughing and having a good time, but it just seemed like it was too much for him and he was trying to block some of it out. And so then I really started to pay closer attention to his behavior. And I noticed that he was exhibiting some stimming behavior. He rocks. He'll rock on the couch. He'll rock back and forth on the couch. If we're standing in line at the store or something, he'll rock back and forth from foot to foot.
Yeah.
And then the real topper off the cake was when he started acting out aggressively towards me. And for Mason, that was very out of character. It was so unlike him because he's just the sweetest kid. And he's gone through periods where he's had issues with aggression, but it's never been serious. I mean, it was more like he was
like
biting.
Like a lack of being able to control the aggression, not really aggression, say, at an individual. It was more lack of being able to control the emotions that he was feeling, which is something that I think that we should have picked up on sooner. And that we didn't. And a little bit of background is that Mason's father does actually have Asperger's syndrome. Because of that, me and Jessica, throughout Mason's childhood, we were so preoccupied with looking for signs of severe autism. We were watching to make sure that Mason spoke. We were watching to make sure that Mason made eye contact, that he ate, that he talked to people, that he hugged people. And I think that a lot of those things, we were so preoccupied because Mason was also always on the lower. So when you have a child that you're watching develop, they do it on like a scale. So there's the percentiles, and he was always on the very low end of the percentile for everything. He was a small kid. He walked late. He talked late, but he did catch up. So I think that for us, it was like, oh, good, he caught up, so we're in the clear. And then I've gone through this process, and I'm not going to lie, me going through this process has definitely made me stop and think, well, there's this little boy that I helped raise, and he has these behaviors, and what can I do to make his life better? Even if he doesn't have autism, let's call it something else, and he has whatever he has, but what can we do to make it better for him? So I think that we were so oblivious because of those things. And how does that make you feel as a parent, like, now that we're getting to the spot?
I feel like, I don't want to say that I feel like I failed my kid, because he's still so very young, and we can still adjust so many things with him. But I just wish I would have sat down and looked at the bigger picture that was Mason, and maybe sooner realize that he did walk late and he did talk late, and he's smart. He's a stinking smart kid, but he's not quite where he should be.
Exactly. And I think the things that hold him back are less barriers with intelligence, because the intelligence is there. I think the barriers that he has are more related to processing information. So he understands the information, but it's the point to get from point A to point B is where he struggles. It's not understanding it and it's not receiving it, it's interpreting it.
Right. And and that's exactly it. He knows what we're saying, he knows what we're asking of him, but it's this whole transition period from listening to what we say and then doing it.
Exactly.
And I think he's just super lacking in that middle area of transitioning from point A to point B.
I go through the process of going to your pediatrician. So what have you done? What are you waiting to do? And what steps are you in the process of taking to achieve, whether it's an autism diagnosis or anyway, let's just call it getting Mason the help he needs?
So thankfully, I have an amazing, wonderful pediatrician who just 100% listens to me, listens to my concerns, and he really cares about my kids, and of course, all the kids he treats. But he just really takes a personal effort into my kids and getting what we need to get for them. So right now, pediatrician, and I've requested an appointment with him, and so we get that done on Tuesday. And what is most likely going to happen is Sam may do a little evaluation of his own just to maybe try and see what I'm seeing with Mason, and then refer us out to get more lengthy, more thorough evaluation done for him.
Okay. So that's on Tuesday. So we'll definitely check back in with you after that. I know that it can be a slow process getting through the process of having an autism diagnosis. It can be lengthy and it can be taxing. And we talked about this before we actually recorded, but something that we want to pass on to any parents that are watching this now, and it's actually something I'm totally going to shout out another YouTube channel here. It's my favorite YouTube channel on YouTube right now. It's Fathering Autism. And when I first started my journey, it's a little bit different because Abby on Fathering Autism has severe autism, and it's a completely another ballgame. But at the same time, it isn't. At the same time, he was able to talk about things that just made sense and made it. And one of the resounding things that he said, because I as Mason's co-parent, as somebody who co-parents with him, it's a journey for me as well. And one of the things that resonated between both me and Jessica throughout our conversations leading up to this recording is, no matter what happens in that pediatrician's office on Tuesday or in 2 months or in 3 years, it's not going to change who Mason is. And I want anybody who's watching this and going through this process to really feel and really understand that your child is not going to change when you slap the word autism. All that opens is doors for resources. And what kind of resources are you hoping that you can get for Mason?
Well, first and foremost, we're starting with a sensory room. We're turning our guest room into Mason's own sensory room. We're going to put a swing in here, sensory bins, sensory toys, you name it, we're going to have it. And that's just, that's just for him to have an outlet to release his energy, whether it be just like hyperactive energy or like anger. I mean, like when he's just getting overwhelmed, this is going to be his safe place to go. Aside from that aspect, going to the pediatrician and getting these tests done is so that I can provide Mason the very best care that I can as a parent, so that I can understand my son on the level that he knows and not on the level that I know.
Exactly. You teach
adult.
If you teach a child and they can't learn, you shouldn't change the way the child learns. You should change the way you teach the child.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we're doing. That's the exact approach we're taking. We're getting down to his level, and we're figuring out the best ways to interact with him, the best ways to discipline him, and the best ways to connect with him. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve by getting him some sort of diagnosis. It just, if he needs the extra help, we know how to provide it for him.
Exactly. I think as an adult with autism, it's such a breath of fresh air to me to see parents who don't automatically assume that when you say the word autism that it's I mean, I don't want to say life sentence because it's not going to go away. As I've said before in previous videos, autism is a lifelong, I don't know if we should call it a disability. I don't know what we should call it, but it's lifelong. It doesn't go away. It's part of who you are. But it's so refreshing for me to see adults who respect that and who want to get down to a child's level and don't want to change the child to fit them. And I think that that throughout this journey, I think that you're going to be such a valuable resource for Mason, because I think that you're going to push for what's best for him, and you're going to make sure that you step aside from that moment in your head of saying, well, my child has autism and this is a lifelong thing, this is what we're dealing with, and you're going to be able to step aside and say, but what does this mean for Mason? What does this mean in the long run? What does this mean for his future, for his independence, for growing up? And I'm really, really pleased to hear that. And I'm really, really excited to keep tabs and sort of like keep in the know. I'm excited to see the journey, because it's a special journey. And one of the things that I've touched in on the video that I will link up in the card, talking about, it's in a relationship video about relationships such as partners, but it can really be for anybody. When you start an autism journey, it's not just Mason's autism journey. It's every person that means something to Mason, every person Mason comes in contact, every person responsible for his care. And something that I want to breach into further later is seeing about resources for you, because I just in the same video that I've just linked, talked about I'm going to maybe find some support groups for Frankie to help her deal with the transition of knowing and understanding and learning and all of that. And I think that would be a good thing is maybe you can keep us up to date on what you're doing for not only you, but the other people in Mason's life. How are you approaching when people ask about his behaviors, when people ask about this, what are you doing about say caregivers for Mason? I'm going to ask everybody to adjust the way to help Mason better. I mean, obviously there's a bit of a line where you can only ask people to change so much, but I think with someone as young as Mason, people are really willing to say, what can I do to make sure he prospers? And I'll be really excited to see what you do in regards to that.
Oh, absolutely. And, already having one medically challenged child, I'm used to fighting doctors. I'm going to get to the point where I want to be with him. It doesn't matter how many doctors, because I've had plenty of doctors with Micah. I've had plenty of doctors shrug us off and just kind of be more burdening than they are helpful. And
Exactly.
that's, I'm already in fight mode. So that's the good thing about catching on to this a little bit later than we did. Because before, if I would have thought that Mason had autism and I would have gone to the pediatrician and they would have shrugged us off, I kind of would have just taken it.
Exactly.
Because I didn't know, like, you can challenge your doctors, you can fight your doctors. And now that I have a full broad understanding of exactly how to do that, I know how to better get the care that I need to get for Mason. And that goes for everyone else in Mason's life too. I always adjust the way that I handle things to the way that best suits their needs.
Exactly.
And fully expect that from anyone who's interacting with my kid, because I don't honestly care who you are. There are certain things that will not work with Mason, and there are certain things that will work gloriously with Mason. And you know, and I've done that. I've done that since he was born. I've always, anybody who's ever been a caretaker for Mason, I've always been like, this is how we handle things. This is how we discipline him if he's acting up. This is what we do, and so that's not going to change. But the way we handle things is going to change. And yeah, like I said, I fully expect anyone who's a caretaker to Mason to be able to adjust to Mason and not try and make Mason adjust to them.
Yeah. So I think that's something that, especially touching back on the fighting forward, to any special needs parents out there who are going through this journey, like, it doesn't matter if you're going through this journey due to autism or other learning disabilities or physical disabilities. You just have to be willing to fight for your child, fight for somebody who can't fight for themselves, and it's so wonderful to see people who are willing to do that for other people. Jessica, it's been so wonderful having you, and I look really forward, as I'm sure all of our viewers do, to catching up with you in a couple of weeks' time to see how this progresses and what we can do, and checking back in with you and Mason. So thanks for being on the show, for being my first guest star. Thanks for being my first guest star.